Hello, everyone. As some of you may know, the border crisis is near and dear to my heart. And not for the reason that it's near and dear to alleged Democrats' heart, no. You see, I am a staunch believer in legal immigration. Although it may be difficult, and it is in fact that. I cannot stand the way some politicians in this country have flaunted our country as some kind of shelter for those who feel inconvenienced by their lives in another country. To be more specific, economic migrants, meaning those migrants who travel to the United States in the hopes of gaining a better economic standing in the world, do not deserve to come in to the United States willy-nilly and by the grace of those overseeing that immigration hearing, gaining what has been thrown around so goddamn casually as asylum. Let me be very clear. You are not seeking asylum from not making enough money, plain and simple. That being said, however, those who are fleeing a war zone and persecution, both political and religious, do have a right to try and make it in on an asylum claim, as they are actually facing oppression and persecution. Now, why am I going through this? Well, it's because some politicians have found it warranted to make certain cities quote-unquote sanctuary cities, meaning cities that actively refuse to give up illegals to immigration authority, despite some of these illegals having some less than reputable characteristics. And frankly, from where I'm standing, even if these people were citizens, I wouldn't want them in my city anyway. Let's look. ICE releases lists of accused murderers, rapists, protected under state's sanctuary law. Now, I will point out, it says accused, so keep that in mind as we go through this article, because, well, it is Fox after all. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials in the Pacific Northwest are taking the unusual step of criticizing Washington State's new sanctuary state law and giving detailed examples of the danger they believe it presents to the public. Ah yes, Washington State. For those outside of the US, that is a state way over here. You'll find that the Pacific Northwest region is remarkably SJW and kind of loony, if I will be blunt. According to ICE, Rosalio Ramos was arrested last January for murdering and dismembering his victim. It happened just months after Ramos was released from a Washington jail, despite ICE's request for an immigration detainer and notification of his pending release, neither of which were honored. That blood is on Washington politicians' and government's hands. You let him out, after ICE requested you not do so, or at least have the common courtesy to call them. You have a right to deny it, states' rights and all, but your decisions caused this. The most recent case involves Francisco Carranza Ramirez, who was also in the US illegally. He was convicted of raping a wheelchair-bound Seattle woman twice. He was sentenced to time served and released under the judge's order that he self-deport back to Mexico. Kings County Sheriff officials say he eventually did return to Mexico, but not before assaulting his victim a third time. That is fucking unacceptable. It is simply ridiculous that he was entrusted to return himself to whence he came. Yeah, that's like expecting a flea to get off your pets because you called it naughty and wagged your finger at it. Oh yeah, he left, but when it suited him. Absolutely fucking disgraceful. Meantime, Washington State just passed what some immigration advocates are calling the strongest sanctuary state law in the country. It forbids local jails and state prisons from honoring ICE immigration detainers and even prevents corrections officials from even letting ICE know about the pending release of a criminal illegal immigrant. The law also instructs that Attorney General to draft new rules restricting ICE agents from making immigration arrests at courthouses and hospitals. In signing the law, Democratic Governor Jay Inslee reportedly said, "We will not be complicit in the Trump administration's depraved efforts to break up hardworking immigrant and refugee families." That is fucking bullshit. Either this man does not care about the people living in his state, or he is so blinded by ideology and jaded by the Trump administration's crass commentary that he doesn't know better. Either way, this is beyond anything anyone wanted. And the funny thing is, picture this law being passed in your state. Now, whether you are my right-leaning audience or my left-leaning audience, would this be what you wanted for your state? Would you want immigration authority to simply be unaware that someone who committed a crime was an illegal immigrant as they were getting out of jail? Especially if you were the victim or friends of the victim. Well, I would certainly hope, even if you disagree from my initial premise, you can at least see and respect the fact that immigration can remove the people who do heinous things. But you have to let them. It kind of harkens back to the idea that one's teacher can't know if you're struggling in class if you don't tell them. Sure, you may get bad grades, but they don't know why. You could have not studied, or maybe you have trouble at home. They can't work with you if they are unaware of your situation. It's a weird analogy, but it's less political and maybe could resonate with everyone. But that's it for today. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're not already. I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight, and I'll see y'all soon.